You're listening to the Financial Source podcast on YouTube.
Welcome to the Financial Source podcast. It is a very strange morning out there. The signals we're seeing are getting, frankly, harder and harder to reconcile.
They really are.
I mean, you've got gold smashing through records, hitting highs above $5,300 an ounce.
Which just screams fear.
Exactly. People are terrified. They're looking for safety. But at the exact same time, tech stocks are rallying.
The NASDAQ looks strong.
Everyone seems ready to party. It's Wednesday, January 28th, 2026. And while, the whole world is waiting for the Federal Reserve later today, the real drama might actually be happening in the trade lanes from Seoul to Vancouver.
That's a great point. The trade story is bubbling up again.
So today we're going to break down how markets are positioning for Chair Powell, why the Reserve Bank of Australia might be the only central bank looking to hike, and why trade enforcement is shifting from simple tariffs to this complex supply chain policing. Let's get into it.
It really is a day of contradictions. You have that massive fear trade in precious metals running parallel to, a risk-on sentiment in tech.
It feels like the market is just holding its breath.
Completely.
And sitting right in the middle of this tug of war is the U.S. dollar. It feels like the greenback's been taking a beating lately, trying to fight off this whole de-dollarization narrative. But looking at the screens this morning, it looks like it's trying to stage a bit of a comeback.
That's right. The dollar is attempting to stabilize after a pretty sharp slide. But you have to understand, today isn't really about the data.
The calendar is empty.
It's completely empty. Today is all about the Federal Reserve.
Which is interesting because I don't think anyone is actually expecting them to move rates today, are they?
No, not at all. You're right. The expectation is firmly for the Federal Reserve to hold rates steady.
At what, 350 to 375?
3.50 to 3.75%. Yeah. If they move today, it would be the shock of the century.
So it's not about the decision.
No, markets don't trade on today. They trade on what they think will happen 6 months from now. And right now, the market is pricing in about 45 basis points of easing by the end of the year.
Okay, let's just pause on that. Basis points. What does 45 basis points actually, translate to for people?
Sure. Think of a standard interest rate cut as 25 basis points, 0.25%. So the market prices in 45. Traders are basically betting we get almost 2 full rate cuts before the year is out.
So the market is just sitting there, confident that relief is coming. They're banking on it.
Exactly. And that is where the tension is. The rate decision itself, it's a non-event. But the message from Chair Powell is everything. The market is obsessed with his tone.
So if he sounds patient.
If he signals patience, suggests they're comfortable waiting, that likely lifts the dollar. It validates that kind of holding pattern.
And if he goes the other way, if he sounds worried,
then you could see that dollar downside trade reignite. The market would bet pet cuts are coming sooner and maybe faster.
It's a high-stakes game of poker then. But while we're all watching the Fed, the euro has been climbing. I saw it hit, 1.2082 against the dollar?
Yeah, levels we haven't seen since mid-2021.
That's a huge move.
It is significant. And this brings up the other side of the equation. There's a, let's call it a pain threshold for the European Central Bank.
Right, because a strong currency sounds good, but it actually causes problems.
It causes major problems for an export economy. If the euro gets too strong, European goods get very expensive. That hurts growth. But even more immediately, a strong currency pushes down on inflation.
Because imports get cheaper.
Exactly. Oil, raw materials, anything priced in dollars gets cheaper for Europe. That can push inflation too low. So traders are now watching very, very closely to see if the European Central Bank pushes back at their meeting next week.
They might have to cut rates just to weaken their own currency.
We're entering a zone where the currency's value becomes a policy problem for them.
So the Fed is figuring out when to cut. Europe is worried about a strong euro. But then we look over at Asia, and it's like a totally different movie.
It really is.
Let's talk about Japan. The yen is consolidating, kind of stuck below its 100-day moving average. What's the significance of a technical level like that?
Well, that moving average acts like a psychological line in the sand for traders. When the price sits below a major average like that, it signals the trend might be shifting downward for the dollar against the yen.
So the chart looks heavy.
The chart looks heavy, but the politics feel even heavier. You can't ignore the political pressure. President Trump has been very vocal.
Yeah, I've seen the posts. He's complaining that Japan and China always want to devalue their currencies.
And that rhetoric matters. It keeps the threat of intervention very much alive. If the yen were to strengthen too quickly, the administration views that through a trade war lens. not just as market dynamics.
So traders are on eggshells.
Complete eggshells.
Okay, speaking of being the odd one out, Australia. Every other central bank seems to be looking for the exit ramp, looking to cut rates. What is going on down under?
Australia is effectively decoupling from the global cycle right now. While everyone else is planning their easing, the Reserve Bank of Australia might have one more hike in the chamber.
One more hike? That seems wild in this environment.
Look at the data. The inflation story there just won't go away. The headline number was fine, but the Reserve Bank of Australia prefers to look at the trimmed mean measure.
Trimmed mean? Explain that.
Chuckles. It's a statistical tool. Basically, they chop off the most extreme price moves, the highs and the lows, to get to the core trend. It removes the noise.
So they see what's really happening in the middle.
Precisely. And that trimmed mean is still stubbornly above their target. It tells them the underlying inflation pressure hasn't gone away.
So they can't claim victory yet.
Not yet. And the market knows it.
Yeah.
Markets are pricing in better than 70% chance of a hike from the Reserve Bank of Australia in February.
70%. That's high conviction.
It is. And it highlights this massive contrast. It's a huge divergence for any kind of global investor.
It really is. Okay, let's shift from rates to trade. The drumbeat of tariffs is getting louder.
It's becoming the background music of 2026.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing this clearly with South Korea. Trump recently said the U.S. will find a solution together.
Which sounds nice and diplomatic. Together.
It sounds diplomatic, but officials in Seoul are openly worried. They know that if investment talks break down, those tariff hikes could be back on the table instantly. The threat is the leverage.
And it's not just Asia. This story with Canada and electric vehicles feels like a major shift.
This is a critical evolution. We used to talk about bilateral tariffs. Now we're talking about what I call supply chain policing.
Supply chain policing, what does that actually mean?
Means the U.S. isn't just looking at the country stamp on the final product. They're looking through the border to where it originated. United States Trade Representative Greer drew a very hard line.
So no loopholes.
No loopholes. The message is, Chinese EVs will not be allowed to enter the U.S. via Canada without hitting heavy levies. You can't just move production to a friendly neighbor to bypass restrictions anymore.
So you have to pick a side.
You really do.
And while the U.S. is playing defense, China's playing offense. Or maybe just strategic survival. I saw Beijing has resumed buying Canadian canola.
That caught my eye as well. Bloomberg reported it.
Is that a peace offering?
I wouldn't call it a peace offering. I'd call it pragmatic. It's China actively managing its import dependencies.
So it's about food security.
Exactly. Amidst all the trade noise, they are making sure they have the raw materials they need. It shows they separate the politics from the pantry when they have to.
A global chess game. Okay, let's pivot to commodities. Gold. $5,311 an ounce. A staggering number.
It's a historic milestone.
Yeah.
A fresh all-time high.
What's driving that? Just the weaker dollar?
The dollar helps, for sure. But
Uh-huh.
you don't get to 5,300 just on currency moves. This is a fear trade.
Fear of what, exactly?
Event risk. People are looking at the trade wars, the geopolitics, the debt levels, and they're buying insurance. Silver's doing the same, hovering near records.
So metals are screaming caution. But then energy seems to be running out of steam. Natural gas at Henry Hub is back below $4.
Right. And that's because the panic from the Arctic storm is subsiding. That was a weather trade.
A temporary shock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The market is efficient. Production is coming back online, so the risk premium is coming out of the price. The worst of it seems to be passing.
But then you have copper at $13,000 a ton. That's not a fear trade.
Not at all. That's a growth trade.
Yeah.
Copper has reclaimed that $13,000 level. It's Dr. Copper, right?
Mm.
He has a PhD in economics because it predicts growth.
Because you need it to build things.
You need it for the grid, for houses, for data centers. Major banks see structural support for copper in the first half of this year. They think the physical demand is real, especially if the dollar stays soft.
So you have gold rising on fear and copper rising on structural demand.
It's a very robust, if contradictory, set of signals.
Speaking of fear, let's widen the scope to global security. The Russia-Ukraine situation seems stuck.
Stuck in a very dangerous phase. Diplomacy is very complicated, which is code for we're nowhere near a breakthrough.
And Europe is talking about building its own defense capacity.
Which costs a huge amount of money. But look beyond that. The Russia-India connection is getting more visible. There are reports of joint naval exercises in the Indian Ocean scheduled for February.
That's significant. India usually tries to walk a middle path.
Exactly. Visible military coordination like that suggests the alliances are hardening.
Yeah.
And then in the Middle East, a Houthi military source claimed they would block U.S. aircraft carriers from the Red Sea.
A bold claim.
Whether they can do it is one thing, but the threat keeps the risk premium in shipping lanes very high. Plus, we're hearing there's no diplomatic contact between the U.S. and Iran. That silence is dangerous.
It's a pretty grim picture. But then, almost miraculously, we pivot to tech, and it's like a different planet.
This is the tech optimism that is counterbalancing the gold fear.
Despite all the tariffs and wars, semiconductors are moving.
They are. We saw reports that China has approved imports of over 400,000 NVIDIA H200 chips.
400,000? I thought high-end AI chips were restricted.
There are heavy restrictions, but approvals are still happening for certain versions of the chips. And the H200 is critical for AI training.
So China is getting 500,000 of them.
This, combined with strong earnings from ASML, proves something important. The demand for AI infrastructure is resilient enough to, navigate the geopolitical friction. The economic incentive is just too strong.
So let's try to bring this all together. What does this all mean? We have gold screaming, watch out. We have copper and tech stocks saying growth is coming.
It's a conflicted market, absolutely. But it all comes back to the Federal Reserve today. The market is conditional.
Conditional on what?
Conditional on permission. The rally in tech and copper is built on the assumption that the Fed is going to cut rates, that money will get cheaper. Gold is the hedge against that going wrong.
So everyone is looking at Powell to sign the permission slip.
Correct. If Powell comes out patient and steady, risk assets can probably hold up. The party continues. But if he pushes back hard against those easing expectations,
The market is wrong-footed.
completely wrong-footed, it's positioned for cuts. A hawkish surprise could cause a really sharp correction because the foundation of this rally would just be pulled away.
That's the danger zone. All-time highs in gold, near highs in stocks, all predicated on a specific message from one guy in Washington.
It really is. It highlights how centralized the narrative has become. We are watching all these global events, but the algorithm is still mostly programmed to watch the central bank.
Makes you wonder how long that disconnect can last.
That is the fundamental tension, isn't it?
Thanks for listening to the Financial Source Podcast. See you next time.
Appreciate you tuning in. Join us again on the Financial Source Podcast.